About a week and a half ago, myself and my two oldest kids, we just completed an 1,800-mile road trip from Los Angeles, California to Waco, Texas. And we did this in a car that we knew next to nothing about. In fact, the car was a giveaway by Ethan Tufts from the Hello Road YouTube channel. But what we did know about the car was that it was a BMW. It had 210,000 miles on it, and the air conditioning worked. Regardless of that, we took the leap of faith armed with not much more than a roadside assistance card. We flew from Philadelphia to Los Angeles to start this epic semi-cross country road trip with the intent of making memories and seeing the country. This video here is a summary of that road trip, along with some behind the scenes footage, lessons learned, and to put some context to the footage in the video that we have taken already. This is the first day of our epic cross-country drive. And we're in Philly right now, but we're hopping on the plane. I had set up a direct flight from Philly to LA for Saturday morning, and we were expected to arrive in Los Angeles at 9:30 in the morning. The plan was to spend the day with Ethan before starting our trip back east to Delaware. Of course, Spirit Airlines, they had a different plan for us when they flat out canceled our flight just as we were getting our bags checked in at the airport. We were rescheduled the next day for Sunday, but this time with a layover in Atlanta. So Sunday's flight was delayed, however, so long that when we got to Atlanta, our connecting to LA had already left without us. So we were hiking the Burbank Trail to the Hollywood sign. I likened dealing with Spirit Airlines to climbing this mountain. And that's where I realized the similarities between everything Spirit is doing to keep us away from LA and hiking this mountain. Oh, and no matter what the Yelp reviews say about this trail, it is way more difficult, way more exhausting than anyone says. Parts of this trail were like climbing a ladder where you're using both your hands and your feet, and then you have the glaring sun too. That is, except for this one lone Joshua tree at one of the peaks that overlooks Burbank and all the TV and movie studios. Under that tree was also a journal where hikers would write their names and a poem or whatever else came to mind. The whole hike took us 3.5 hours or so, and if you ever do it, take way more water than you think you need, and sunscreen too. Our time in LA was mostly spent in West Hollywood, Sunset Strip, Beverly Hills. For the first time ever, we used Lyft and Uber to get around, which was super easy. Grace adored Rodeo Drive, and that whole area called the Golden Triangle. For the short time that we were at Rodeo Drive, this dude in this convertible Rolls Royce, he must have driven by at least 4 times, making sure to look at me because he saw me videoing. He just wanted to be seen the whole time. The next day, while on Sunset Boulevard, the smell of weed was everywhere, and we learned the area is nicknamed Hollyweed. The next day was Hollywood Park, the Griffith Observatory, and our first In-N-Out burger. This was also Grace's first time having a burger ever, and frankly, she wasn't impressed. Grace wanted to go back to Rodeo Drive, where she drug us to the Louis Vuitton Museum. So get this, Rodeo Drive is probably the most expensive retail space in California. The museum is on the most prominent corner of Rodeo Drive and in the most prominent building. The museum didn't cost anything to enter, and it really wasn't there to sell anything either. It was all about flexing and showing off. Each room in the museum was a tribute to some different product, but it was also an amazing and an incredible visual experience with lighting and colors and artistic presentation. The upstairs continued to vibe and included an outside veranda to sit and absorb the magnitude of the experience. There must have been at least 50 staff members throughout the whole building, and simply the sheer cost of all of this must have been staggering, and it was truly incredible and even a bit overwhelming too. Later that night, we ended up in San Bernardino at the Wigwam Hotel. Wigwam Hotel, Route 66 in San Bernardino. Check it all out! Look at that! How crazy is that? This drive was 70 miles. When I was booking the motel for the night, I found out there's another Wigwam Motel in Holbrook, Arizona, and a high-end Wigwam Hotel and Spa as well. So if you're ever looking to stay at a Wigwam Motel, just make sure you get the right one. After San Bernardino, we headed to Barstow, California, where the Route 66 Museum was closed. In Barstow. The beginning of like the desert to me, right? This is like symbolic, and the museum's closed. I don't know. I guess we'll just go on to the next stop. After having lunch at the Panda Express, my fortune cookie foreshadowed our finding Route 66 and later the Baghdad Cafe. Baghdad Cafe. Check this out. The Buffalo Burger. We got graffiti on everything. People throwing stickers on the doors. Looks like a bar. Uh-oh. Look at this. We got Easy Rider coming in. Holy cow. Cruising 66. What? This group of bikers ended up being a tour group from Germany that rented Harleys and were riding Route 66 for their vacation here in the United States. From there, it was on to Lake Havasu, where for the first time ever, we felt what 110 degrees feels like. Even the water in the pool and the lake was 87 degrees. We drove about 150 miles since leaving Lake Havasu. We pulled off Route 40, which is the main highway going through here, I guess. We got back on Route 66 and This is also the first time I started wondering if we're going to be able to finish this trip on time and if I should find a place to store the car and maybe fly home. Oh, and in Seligman, there's this burger shop that also served chicken sandwiches, but not any kind of chicken. They made sure theirs was dead chicken. The Grand Canyon was incredible, but so was the drive there, which was about 80 miles down this simple 2-lane road that only led to the Grand Canyon. We saw what I thought was moose, but a few of you guys commented that they were really elk instead. After a couple hours, we left the Grand Canyon, but really that place deserved more of our time. Maybe even 2 days worth. Regardless, we had to get going and ended up driving right by Winona, Winslow, and the Big Crater in order to get to Holbrook, Arizona. After spending the night in a classic Route 66 roadside motel, we headed to the Petrified Forest for a couple hours. The sheer size of the park is simply overwhelming. The scenery is breathtaking. The fossilized trees were a 2-hour hike from the center of the park, which we just didn't have time for. We're a few miles into the Petrified Forest, and this is where Route 66 at one time went through this land. I guess maybe prior to it becoming a park. So there's some old telephone poles you can see that dotted the landscape, boop, 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 all the way down. In 1958, this section of Route 66 was closed off and rerouted. We later explored the abandoned Fort Courage. So we left the Petrified Forest. It was maybe 45 minutes ago, so we're maybe 50, 60 miles away. Check out this. Fort Courage, that's what this is called. It's in a town called Hook, Arizona. And had a late lunch in Gallup, New Mexico on our way to Santa Rosa, New Mexico for the night. Once in Santa Rosa, our first stop was the Blue Hole, a natural spring that percolates up to the surface. It's a swimming hole also, and the water is freezing. 61 degrees all year long. It was pretty crazy seeing this oasis in the middle of the desert. It was $5 per car to get in, and they had a lifeguard there, and about the only thing missing was a taco stand. What'd you think? Don't do it? Oh, the water's freezing cold. It's like 1,000 tiny daggers stabbing you all over your body. This is also when I had the idea of doing as much of the video in Espanol. Grace thought it would be pretty cringy, and yeah, she's probably right, so I skipped the embarrassment. After the Blue Hole, we headed to Roswell, which was insanely desolate. In fact, there were 2 country roads that we took that were about 90 miles total in length. Basically the entire length of the state of Delaware, and we saw maybe a handful of cars doing that leg of the drive. So we've been driving this road to Roswell, right? So we left Santa Rosa an hour and a half ago. We still have another 45 minutes or so before we get to Roswell. We've been driving this road. Look at this. I haven't seen another car, another person, an animal, a horse, a cow, nothing. Only country road on the way to Roswell. Nate wanted to drive and see if he could get the car to 100 miles an hour. In this scene, he wanted me to hold the phone in portrait mode so that he could put it on his Snapchat. Getting to Roswell and checking out the sights was a blast. Look where we are, we made it! And really, it was one of my main goals with this road trip, so I'm glad we were able to make it. There were plenty of museums, attractions, and things to do that 2 days would have been about the right amount of time there, instead of the 2 hours that we spent. Afterwards, we continued east into Texas. It's crazy that we saw more oil rigs and oil pumps in that part of New Mexico than we did in Texas. But what was really ironic was that once we got into Texas, we saw about 10 times more wind turbines than there were oil pumps. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. We're in Sweetwater, Texas. The following day, we were in Waco, Texas. We got to the silos. This place is killing it. They have food trucks lined up on 2 streets over here, a dining area, restrooms obviously. They have an outside grassy area for yard games. They have the silos, which you can't go in. I don't know what's in there. It's empty, I guess. The bakery, of course, and the home goods. And we got to meet up and hang out with Gary from WJ Handy Dad. I promised Grace a chance to drive, and Gary's 33-acre shop was the perfect place. Get on the driveway. There you go. And just like that, our 10 days to drive cross country, well, really 8 days since Spirit took 2 from us, it was over. Gary was super kind, super generous to show us around his new place here. 23-year-old BMW made the trek halfway across the country. A big thank you to Ethan, first of all, right? I mean, that's where this whole story begins. With Ethan Tufts at the Hello Road channel, who gifted this car to us. A big thank you to my friend R134, right, for keeping us cool all the way across the country to get us here. A big thank you to Gary and the kids. Love it all. The kids went back to school a few days later, and everything just kind of returned back to normal again. So we had 10 days planned for this road trip, but we simply ran out of time. It was way more fun, way more fulfilling than I had imagined. We had to leave the car in Waco, Texas, and fly back home to Delaware so the kids could get back to school and we could start getting back into our normal routine again. Now, when I got back home here, I took a look at the calendar and I realized that the next opportunity to finish this road trip won't be until Christmas break. And I simply don't want to wait that long. I don't think it's fair to Gary and be burdened with the car. And, you know, I want to get moving with this thing. So I reached out to a bunch of different transport carriers. $650. I have this car back up here from Waco to Delaware. The car should arrive within a day or 2 or 3. It's already been picked up. And once it gets here, I'm going to do the same thing that Ethan Tufts did. I'm going to pay it forward. I'm going to make this car a giveaway to one of you guys, the viewers, for watching these videos. So I think it's going to be a video submission. It's going to be quite similar, I think, to what Ethan did, what Hoovie's Garage did with his giveaway. And so start thinking about some ideas of what you want to do, what you want to say, what you want to talk about. Because once the car gets up here, I want to do this giveaway quick. I want the car gone. I'm hoping to have it gone by the end of September. So give us some thought now before that video comes out on the giveaway once the car gets up here. So I'd like to give a great big thank you first to Ethan Tufts for starting this whole story, starting the whole journey with this car. I want to give a big thank you to Gary and his hospitality for being so welcoming, taking the time off from work on that Monday and greeting us and getting us in and spending some time with us also. And I want to give a big thank you to the kids too for being so cool with me fulfilling this cross-country road trip dream that I had. Also, thank you to you guys for following along, for enjoying this journey, for sharing the experience with me, for the comments. It was overwhelming how great the comments and the experiences were that you guys were sharing with me as well while we were doing these videos and doing this road trip. And as always, I appreciate it and thank you so much for watching.